then this machine appears to be the solution to bringing our food supply back, one of the many solutions.
Good afternoon, everyone. 13 nations agree to abolish farming.
Machine. And
U.S. consumer
Lefty was
prices
getting
evolving.
Lefty's William Levingood was getting
Delinquency
great
rate of
results
multifamily
in
housing,
chamber.
highest in the financial crisis.
30 to 400%
European Commission, the only one with a balanced budget.
By the
Dark
dry
blue.
seeds in the corner of his
And for some reason, all these sardines are beaching themselves out of the water.
They will adjust their
free
frequency
food
to
or indicators of a volcanic eruption or earthquake.
To a farmer, whether it's grain or veggies or whatever. But they produce the fruit of that plant is going to be geared toward healing the person that handled them, the person that took care of them. And that's a critical piece of knowledge. If you're eating food that came from South America, that food has been grown in soil that does not have the paciferins and some of the other factors in it that will heal us in North America. And it doesn't have the what the plant puts in. The plant's job is to serve the human. And so when the human's walking back and forth among the plants, if there's a human walking back and forth among the plant is tuning in to that frequency, that field, and saying, oh, he's missing this and she needs that, and etc. And so they then change their chemistry to heal that person.
And good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for spending your valuable time right here on the Adapt 2030 channel. Now, today I'm going to bring you something special. You know, I've been focusing on the planetary geometry and the four gas giants making their square as perceived from Earth in 2024. And there's a lot of references from the Tree of Life to the Hyundai Cross of these different planetary alignments showing that there's going to be some sort of energetic change on the planet. But to take it 2 or 3 steps further, Patty Greer, Penny Kelly with me also to talk about crop circles, these types of energies, increasing crop yields with electromagnetism. And can we replicate some of these things that the Earth is showing us, teaching us? That's why I'm saying it's going to be a little bit down the same trajectory, parallels with understanding the energetic changes, but then how can we use that in our normal waking lives, and what kind of changes can we expect as we move forward from now through what would be the block square of the gas giants perceived from Earth. So, you know, sit back. This is going to be an incredible conversation. Like I was saying before, I'm just going to be a fly on the wall because I'm trying to get this information, kind of dovetail it with mine on the energetic changes. Mine's more on the, top 2 miles of the crust, what types of change we might see electromagnetically and some liquefaction events, or maybe some infrastructure being broken, bridges pulled from their banks, that sort of thing, railroads getting snapped and conduits, etc. But it goes far, far, far beyond just what you consider in the top mile of the crust or so electromagnetically. So that's all I'm going to say. And Patty, Penny, thank you for joining me. I'm just going to let you go because y'all have been talking and have this so wired in. I feel like a kindergartner sitting right here on the screen. So yeah, the floor is yours, both of you.
Norman Rockwell's Freedom from Want painting depicts one of the most peaceful scenes in American life as a family gathers around a holiday dinner table to give thanks, eat, talk, laugh, and share in an abundance of blessings. While this great American tradition will play out in the coming weeks, a hunger catastrophe is unfolding around the world, putting even the simplest of meals out of reach for a growing number of individuals and families around the world. Right now, nearly 1/3 of the world is food insecure, with over 828 million people going to bed hungry each night. 149 million children experience stunted growth and development due to a chronic lack of essential nutrients. As many as 50 million people in 45 countries are at immediate risk of famine, and more than 45 million children suffer from acute malnutrition or wasting, a devastating condition where a child's body is so starved of nutrients it begins to consume itself. These numbers are staggering, and behind every one of them is a real person. More than 44 million people in the U.S. face hunger, including 1 in 5 children. Millions of people in the U.S. don't have enough food to eat or don't have access to healthy food. This is a big problem, but together we can solve it. Although it isn't always obvious who is going without food or facing food insecurity, it might be your friend, your grandparents, or a coworker who is struggling to put food on the table. It could be a neighbor, the friendly elderly couple down the street. Maybe it's a single dad or mom who might need help. We all have tough times. That's why investing in emergency food storage is a must for you and your family's long-term safety net, but it can also be a life-saving gift. So in this giving season, you could help others by providing a helping hand to those in need of a little extra to make it through. As we always say, those who know what's coming are using today to prepare. American families are preparing. Folks are investing in emergency food storage. And you should be too, and you can start today with ADAPT 2030. Right now you can save $200 on a 3-month emergency food supply for yourself, or even better, for someone in need. Make this holiday season truly a happy one. My Patriot Supply, the country's largest preparedness company, is more than equipped to stock your shelves. Their best-selling 3-month emergency food kit provides delicious breakfasts, lunches, and dinners that last up to 25 years in storage. That's 25 years of security. Just think about that. Almost nothing out there other than gold and guns that will maintain not only value but usefulness and security. And right now, it's $200 off. Get over 2,000 calories every day. Just add water and heat, then eat. Make sure every member of your family has a 3-month food kit from My Patriot Supply.
All
Well,
right.
thank you. Wonderful. You have done shows with Penny, I know, about whatever you guys work on, and we've done shows about C60 Evo. But Penny and I were brought together by this miracle years ago when I was doing my movies. And I thought I was done making movies. And then a gentleman came up to me when I was at a speaking gig and said, "There's somebody you need to meet." And it was the most mystical adventure I have ever been on. And it culminated in my final film, Crop Circle Diaries, which is me and Penny Kelly telling the truth about crop circles that people want to know, because it's going to benefit humanity and the wildlife and the sky and everything, to be able to maximize these magical energies that have been here forever and very suppressed. William Levengood, the great scientist that Penny worked with for 16 years, was severely suppressed because, punchline, he invented a machine that's going to do what crop circles do. We'll get to that at the end. But for me, I've never met anybody that knew as much as Penny Kelly when it comes to science, plasma, and what's really causing crop circles to happen. So I've been on a wonderful journey since we met, and we tell the whole story in my final film. So crop circles are very real. And now I'm going to let Penny take over, because I've been in more than 100. She's only been in a few locals, but she studied all of the wheat, corn, barley, plants, nodes scientifically. So the two of us came together to really explain scientifically, etherically, and physically what's going on in England, mainly in the crop circles.
Yeah.
Penny?
Thank you, Patty. So, David, did you want to interject something in there?
No, the only thing I would ask is, are the amount of these or the complexity of them increasing as the electromagnetic, say, frequency of our entire solar system in this, regional arm of our galaxy is also changing?
They haven't been increasing in discoveries. No, I think they were more. There was 150 on average when I was filming 2007, 8, 9, 10, during that period. There's only been, I haven't counted this year, maybe 40, 45 altogether compared to 150. So the interest has gone down, but I think the disrespect for the earth has caused the slowing down of crop circle messaging.
I would add to that also, Patty. I wondered if there were crop circles happening in places where people just aren't paying attention, or they aren't being reported, or they're in unoccupied, uninhabited parts of the globe, because 40% of our world has never seen a human footprint at all. So
Wow.
that's a lot of space for
Yeah.
stuff happening.
All
Yeah.
I know is documented crop circles. So I don't think most of the audience really knows how crop circles happen. And I can explain it well, but Penny explains it better. Would you like to talk about really where crop circles come from?
Sure, absolutely. And I'll just say that I have not been in the big crop circle. Well, I was to one in England, but I had a crop circle in my backyard, and I saw the two blue balls of light traveling up the driveway at a tremendous rate of speed. And sure enough, there were some crop circles in my grass. And the following year, there were mushrooms as big as a dinner plate. They were huge. So crop circles, there's a lot of stuff out there about them, but they come basically from the interaction of the energies spiraling up out of the earth. And we see evidence of those in what are called land spouts, sometimes water spouts. Those are energies coming up out of the earth, and they interact with energies coming down from the atmosphere. And sometimes they start dancing around one another. And when they get into that dance, there'll be a pattern within the frequencies, within the energies. And you picture it as two counter-rotating tornadoes that stay in relationship, move together almost like one mind. And there's a whole complex of energies in those tornadoes. And some of them are microwaves, and some of them are ion electron avalanches, and some of them are thermal gradients, and some are certain boundary conditions that hold a particular pattern of turbulence right next to another pattern of turbulence that is very different. And they don't destroy one another. They have boundaries. And there are probably seven different kinds of frequencies and what we call fields, electromagnetic fields, that are all swirling together, and they end up making a mathematical pattern. And that pattern gets laid out in whatever that crop circle happens to be, or wherever those two vortices are moving. And if it's wheat, or if it's millet or corn, you have to have really high energies to get a crop circle in corn because it's so sturdy and stiff. But in grasses, people have seen the effect of crop circles. When you see a ring in your yard, that where the grass is just very much greener, just in that ring, and there may be a series of rings that move across the yard, and that is a clear sign that you have had some of those moving energies moving through your yard. And because the planet is alive and conscious, the planet is responding not only to us, but it's in interactions with all of the other planets, etc. And so there are messages that the Earth sends back and forth and picks up from other places. And we have an amazing, I think Dr. Levengood investigated 360 or so, was over 350 different crop circles. And we saw, when you have microwaves, for instance, and you have a stalk of wheat is made from plastic. It's called cellulose. And cellulose is a plastic. In fact, when I was a girl, we used to call plastic combs cellulose combs. We didn't use the word plastic. And that only became common much later. But those microwaves melt the stalk, and the stalk just bends right over and keeps right on growing. Sometimes there will be, the microwaves will be very, very hot, and they will cause the liquid in that stalk to boil, and that will blow out the nodes. The plant builds these nodes every 6 or 7 inches. Yeah, there you go. the plant builds these nodes that strengthen the stalk as it grows up, so it doesn't bend over at the first breeze. But the node will blow out, it will boil. Some other things that we have seen on the back of these crop circles, on the back of leaves from the crop circle, are these, you'll see on a leaf that if you look at it under the microscope, there's all these cells, just like us. And the cells are flat and green and kind of rectangular. And there's a little cell wall mouth in the middle of that cell. And the mouth opens with certain frequencies. For instance, when the birds sing in the morning, they sing at 4,000 to 5,000 hertz. That's their music. And that mouth opens when it hears 4,000 to 5,000 hertz music and drinks in dew, which has come up from the plant over the night, and takes that dew full of minerals and helps build itself out. So what we saw on these plants that had been impacted by the cell wall or by the microwaves, which were very hot, with the mouth would kind of sag open. The cell wall pit would open and it would freeze open, it would solidify. And the plant was not able to then protect itself as well. Over 85-degree temperatures, plants will close their mouths in order to avoid losing moisture. They will only open it again once temperature drops below. Plants quit growing above 85 degrees. And so there were all sorts of things that we saw. There were some leaves that were plastered with iron, and that iron only melts, only becomes liquid at 1,200 degrees centigrade. And that leaf had when you pull the leaf and the iron apart, you could see the imprint of the leaf and all the striations and the mouths, everything. It was just, there are things that are happening that cannot be faked. And there were only probably, of all of the crop circles that Levengood studied, there were a very small percentage, maybe only a half a dozen, that were fake. And yet the reputation got out there, or the story got out there, that they were all fake. And that is not the least bit true. And the message for us is that there are energies circulating here based on frequencies. And one of that's part of our message is, hey, what do you guys know about frequency? And we haven't really paid attention much to that. The common people have not been taught about that. Scientists, some of them are now paying attention. When we were working with Yurander Oliveira down in South America, that it is time for you to begin to understand how to use frequencies. And that was a huge clue for the work in the lab, because what came out of that was the understanding of how to create frequencies, binaural frequencies and trinaural frequencies that could be used to do very unusual things. So the crop circles and the ET appearances and all of the work with animal excisions that was done in the lab, all of that is to get us to start looking at, hey, you guys are made of frequencies. What are you doing? What do you know? What can you learn? What should you know, etc. So I'll stop there, but it was really quite an amazing, it was really only 15 years, not 16, but it was quite an amazing period of time that I was learning. Levengood was blackballed and nobody would publish his stuff after publishing for years, 40 years. And then all of a sudden deciding he was going to investigate, and he was a plant physicist. And so his question was, why would make all those plants lay down like that in that pattern? What is that about? And he said he knew that he would maybe be ostracized somewhat. There would be some criticism. He didn't think that he'd be shut out completely. And nobody would publish him. A few people would. The Journal of Scientific Exploration published a few of our pieces. But that whole thing was really, I think, the thing that we have to do as a population now is realize, okay, what can we know? What should we know? What about us? What can we know about us? And so I've put together stuff, Lefty and I had stuff that we put out. I wrote a book, I have a YouTube class that I have available. I think it's on Patreon, maybe. But I teach it. And it's basic stuff, but it'll knock your socks off. And I think that's what they want, is for us to, to have sort of a holy cow kind of moment. This is a whole new world that we're walking into. Let's get our bricks in a pile. So.
Hey, Penny, could I jump into the question quickly here?
Yeah.
After you understood the resonant frequencies on the crops, I mean, what you described originally was a field-aligned current for anybody out there. Those Birkeland currents are the same things that stars form along that same current flow, the interwrapping current of the positive negative charges there that have that frequency pattern that hold in. They call it a field-aligned current or a Birkeland current further in space with high voltage through the heavens, for a better term. Once y'all did some research on the seeds, did the seeds from those plants have increased yields then in subsequent generations of the seeds? And for me, that would be right away the reason the research was stifled, because it interferes with big ag. That's just my personal opinion. I'm just saying, if there was an increase in yield.
Yeah, there was a huge increase. Yeah. And Patty showed a picture of the little machine that we used to duplicate what crop circles could do. But nobody was interested in that. Yeah,
describe that machine there, because, we're looking at resonant frequency. So the most basic that a lot of people are on right now is electroculture, trying to remagnetize the soil using copper wiring, which is something a little different versus just having iron tools, etc. But Patty, what was that picture? Can you bring that back up and maybe give us kind of a diagnostic walkthrough here on how the frequencies might change whatever's in the chamber there?
Well, Penny and Lefty, Penny can explain it better because she was in the lab. I was taking so many photos I couldn't breathe. And this machine appears to be the solution to bringing our food supply back, one of the many solutions, but it's a charge density plasma machine. And Lefty was getting Lefty is William Levengood, was getting great results in the germination chamber, but it wasn't until he was cleaning his desk that he found this little envelope in the corner of one of his drawers, and he pulled it out and it had these old seeds in it from a crop circle. And he looked at them, and I'll never forget the words, because Penny said, I just like, wow, that's great. He said, oh, no proper seedsman would test these seeds. So he went to throw them in the trash, and that little voice grabbed his ear and said, no, don't do that. And he did try it again to put it in the trash, and that little voice that made all my films with me said, no, don't do that. So he's like, okay. So he put them in the germination chamber and put them in the germination tank, and they grew like gangbusters. 30 to 400% more food and biofuel was achieved by the dry seeds in the corner of his envelope in the back of a drawer for months, forgotten about. So here we have shriveled, dried, neglected seeds, not just fresh seeds out of a crop circle that are performing at that level, but the dried, shriveled ones, right, Penny?
That's right. We actually ended up treating a lot of seeds. The whole story, actually, let me tell the beginning part of the story. It's that he was researching seeds because he was a seedsman himself, and he had gotten to this point where he wondered what would happen if you hit seeds with an electromagnetic impulse. And so he decided he was going to put some seeds in this chamber, in this thing that Patty was just showing. That's actually called a Widmanstätten machine, and it's a German machine. And I think he actually put the seeds on the bottom plate. He turned the thing on, hit him with a massive dose of electromagnetic energy, and then put him in the germination chamber, and nothing happened. And he said, well, I kind of expected that. And those were the seeds that he put in off in the corner of his, on the research bench. And it was months later that he was going to clean his lab, and he saw those seeds. And that's when he was going to throw those away. And that little voice said, no, don't do that. Don't do that. And so he ended up thinking, what the heck? He put them in the germination chamber, and they germinated in like half the time, with twice the growth, twice the, I forget what the percentage greater root mass was, big root mass difference. And that was like, wow. So then he spent some time experimenting, hitting different kinds of seeds with this process, and comparing that to what he was getting with the crop circles. And all of a sudden it dawned on him, that's what's happening in the crop circle. They're getting hit with this massive ion electron avalanche of energies. And then things really started to take off, and he began to realize he eventually figured out that when the seed gets hit by that massive amount of energy, it damages the seed. And he said the seed is a living system. It's a little tiny living system. And it then goes to work immediately to try to heal itself. And it reorganizes all of its frequencies and all of its ability to handle any kind of assault. And in the meantime, it's getting rid of waste materials. And when you plant, he said it takes about 5 to 6 weeks, maybe 7 or 8 weeks, for that seed to completely reorganize its entire system and heal. And then when you plant it, wow. Then you get some amazing results. You get resistance to mold, to resistance to mildew, to viruses, to bacteria, to heat, to cold, to drought, to flood. And the plant produces more nutritious food. It tastes a lot better, looks a lot better. I was amazed at some pictures of some carrots. He realized at that point he needed some big trials. And he started analyzing, he started experimenting in his microwave in the kitchen. What happens when you hit a seed or, whatever with various different kinds of energies, and realized eventually through some other crop circle, he had sampling done at very specific locations in a crop circle, I think in maybe New Jersey, somewhere over that way. And what that told him was that the energies were falling off at the square of the distance, just according to a mathematical formula. And he said, if that's happening, that means that this X kind of energy is in the system and it's falling off according to formula, and started finally pulling all of it together, and could not get that published. Nobody would listen. The Discovery Channel or the History Channel or somebody came out, and the History Channel, I don't watch them anymore, or the Discovery Channel, because they come out to investigate something that they say is going to reveal something, and they advertise it like this amazing discovery is going to be made. And then they have a formula, and the formula is the same every time. He said, she said, oh, it's inconclusive. And they came out to the lab, and they photographed both of us for like 8 to 10 hours at a time. And they maybe had 3 minutes of what we actually said in that whole 1 hour program. It was a total waste of time. And one of the scientists that they had on as, he said, she said, he said kind of thing. One of the scientists called us the next day and said, man, I'm really sorry. I didn't realize that that's what they were going to do. I would never have participated in that. I would never have agreed to answer their questions. He said they they took things out of context. They asked leading questions. They distorted it. And he said, I'm sorry. I don't know what else I can say. And so it was like, oh, this is a game. So yeah, you're right on, David.
Hatchet job.
Yeah.
That was a hatchet job for sure. You know, those interviews are very planned to discredit.
I know. And who's the loser?
And then I had to go through it.
Humanity.
Yes.
Lefty
Yeah.
hands the torch over to me a year after he died. So for me, I knew it was real. But also I had been in a ton of crop circles, didn't know anything about the science. I was like everybody else on the planet. Oh, aliens. Oh, spaceships. Oh, military laser. The last thing I'm interested in is Ancient Aliens, Boys with Boards and Ropes, or BBC's Boys with Boards and Ropes, you know. And I do know that that's what they use because I was given the opportunity to be on one of those shows. Oh, and have one of those articles. And all they did was BS. It was absolutely stunning. They brought in a human team a month before crop circle season because, well, no reason. And they could have had all the good stuff. So I wasted, like Lefty did, I wasted an entire weekend because Ancient A, contacted me when they were done filming and they said, we heard you've got the footage. And I'm like, yeah, I do. And can we, see what you've got and, pay you, for use? I wasted a weekend, sent them great clips, great photos. They offered me $50 for one photo. And needless to say, I said, no, thank you. Don't touch my stuff. You have no permission. And the fact that you guys filmed in May before there were any crop circles and you got a human team. I don't know if they use Team Satan, but that's one of the teams over there. Such a cool name. So anyway, I went through hell with my career, other than being in more than 100 crop circles, heaven. It was the best time of my life. The very first crop circle I walked in, I didn't know what to expect, but all of a sudden I looked down and the little teeny hairs on my arm are standing up and back of my neck. I was like, my God, the hair, I could feel it head to toe. And I turned around to the couple ladies that were with me and they both went, like we were silenced by the fact that you could actually tactily feel the frequency shifting in a crop circle. And then after that one, I could tell 10, 15 feet before we'd enter. And you're just walking in a huge field of crop down a tractor line where the tires go. And you have no idea where the formation is unless you're up on a hill looking down or flying over in a little microlight or a helicopter. And so to find them, you're given directions, but they're so vague. Look for the broken tree branch and then go 4 tram lines, tractor tire lines, and just keep walking. So you're like, well, yeah, that's, hopeful. And then there it is. But all of a sudden, before you see anything, it's like, boom, the little hairs go up and my whole body just lit up. So there's something lit up. And Penny and I were talking about what creates light and how we can use light to intentionally move things forward. So I didn't know, again, anything about how they're made. But again, crop circle wisdom is hidden in the field of ufology because it's not unidentified you. It's not flying. It's a crop circle in a field. And it's not an object. It's a crop circle. And a crop circle is literally, in my opinion, a message from the earth herself to humanity in a language we all understand. Art, pictograms, mathematics, Mandelbrot, Fibonacci sequence, codes, binary codes. Oh my God. We've got 2 from the turn of this century to share with you. And those are the first 2 photos that I sent. Binary code. Now, of course, the military can do it. Boys with boards and ropes, boys and girls with boards and ropes, maybe. But yeah, boring. There really are, in my opinion, messages from the earth. Lefty, with all his wisdom, said only half a dozen maybe were not real. I'm going to say in the over 100 I went in, there was only 1 that didn't have a feeling. There were a couple of them that were kind of neutral, but I could feel every crop circle. And it wasn't that I was just excited, it's that the frequencies are enhanced when you're in the formations. There's been a lot of people in England, including tomorrow, that are going, oh, I made all of them. Oh, yeah, I made that one too. It's like, okay, let's take you on camera with Doug and Dave, who, pretended that they made all the crop circles in the 80s. And then they went on camera and they made a schlocky crop circle. So the guys now can make pretty good ones, but they're not the real ones. And I don't think that their claim of, oh, I made most of them this summer in England, I don't think so. But I stopped going in 2014 because the military clamped down and made the farmers quit letting us in. My films have already been through the ringer. I just brought one of my handsome EB awards. This is an alien with a movie camera. And I won 5 of these at the International. There's an alien butt in case anybody wants to know what they look like. There you go. But I kept winning
always
awards.
wondered.
Yeah, now you know. Here, I'll leave it at alien butt. There you go. So I won awards for best film, best music, People's Choice. It was such a great honor. That's all I can say. It was not fun to be in the industry, but it was ecstasy to be in the formations. And then to be around people and sharing what I saw and the images is where it gets really juicy. But the fact that we could actually increase our food supply, I believe, is why they've been hiding my films, Lefty's work, why they've made it so difficult. And still, though, I'm just going to say that I made 1, 2, 3 totally crop circle movies.
Yeah, the Crop Circle Diaries, that's a good one. That had that footage of the actual balls of light forming right in the field there. That was wow. That's the only way you can look at that and really just go, wow, that was something unusual there.
Yep. And then this formation is also...
Oh, that's a super famous one as well.
Yeah, 409 circles. And Charles Mallet, who owns the research center, said he was there at 5:30 in the morning, walked the formation completely, not one footstep, and it was rained all night long. So it was really sloshy. You wouldn't be able to hide feet prints if anybody had made that circle in the rain. So that one was real, and that one was phenomenal. I'm going to give Penny some time, and then we'll pull up those images of crop circles in particular that I feel that the Earth herself sent with the intention of giving us information to help us move forward.
Yeah, could I jump into the question first, Penny?
Yeah, sure.
Or Patty, both. Like, first one, why are so many of the circles centered over the UK or in England? And we get occasionally, we might see one in America here and there, but generally it seems to be most of it's centered in Europe. And then I guess, Patty, with the seeds, and the attributes that were taken on by the seeds after the electromagnetic pulses or whatever was coming out, that takes away the need for herbicides, fungicides, these sort of things. And, you're talking about billions and billions of dollars in the agricultural industry, stopping mold and blight, stopping insect damage, and then this sort of thing. Like, if you're going to hit these seeds, can you do it with frequency alone, or could you do it with a magnetic chamber, like an electromagnet alone, or must it be some sort of electromagnetic frequency along with the plasma resonation to get those seeds to take on those new characteristics?
Yes and yes. So, yes.
I guess that may be too many questions.
Okay.
I'll do the first one, but she'll do the second. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, you can use a magnet. Okay. We also had healers, very powerful healers, come into the lab and gave them, a jar full of seeds. They put their hands around it. We had the controls over in another room and had them treat the seeds with the healing energy that they would normally use on a human, and then planted those seeds out and got the same effect. So it isn't limited to just ion electron avalanche or electromagnetic fields. We had another thing that we used in the lab that we actually generated commonly, regularly. superconducting energies and treated the seeds with those. We learned quite a bit with those. What we learned was that the atmosphere is layered about every 2 centimeters. Energies are moving in one direction, and up 2 centimeters, they're moving in an opposite direction. And you go up 2 more and they're moving in another direction. It's like a giant sandwich. And if you had your magnet that you were using to generate superconducting energies at a certain distance from the seeds, you could get total destruction of the seeds. Or if you moved it into the range where there was total regeneration, then it was totally different effect. It was amazing. So there are a lot of things that we discovered. But the big thing is try stuff. Try stuff. You don't know what you can do. It's consciousness. This is really the bottom line. We were doing research into consciousness. And what the goal was to be able to affect something, a jar full or a box full of gelatin, or a beaker full of water, or whatever it was, and to have that show up on the chart recorder. And so that was originally why Lefty contacted me. And so myself and another fellow named Ed Edwards, we both did experiments with Lefty from 100 miles away or further, in which we were able to affect the chart recorder and the energy in the system. And there were that goal was to figure out, okay, what can we do? What role does consciousness play here? Because I was interested in consciousness. He was interested in physics and astrophysics. So in the end, where he said originally, come and let me teach you, I'll teach you plasma physics so that you understand what you're writing about. And I said, I'll teach you consciousness. And so that was the trade that we made. And at the end of his life, he said, it's really all about consciousness. I wish I had said more, done more, etc. And I think he did a lot. He did a lot. So the message, that bottom line, was consciousness impacts plasma and electromagnetic energies instantly. And it does what we ask it to do. And that is the big lesson. And that was then backed up by the people from other planets who have said, that I work with, which is a whole different subject, but they have said, use that consciousness. That is your best tool, your best gift, and you're not using it. You're using it to make a mess. So I'm like, yeah, we pretty much are. So we could do a lot more. So go ahead, Patty. You were going to answer the first question.
Oh, about why are there most discoveries in Wiltshire, England? Yeah. Of all the crop circles researched across the world, and there's been many in many countries, but mostly documented, like Penny mentioned earlier, there might be lots more everywhere else, but you only know about the ones if they get documented. So Wiltshire, England, we've got all these, groups, the Crop Circle Connector, temporary temples that record every crop circle that goes down. They photograph them, or they get photos from someone that did, and document it. So wonderful archive, cropcircleconnector.com and temporarytemples.uk. Every time there was a new crop circle, I get an email because I joined their newsletter. It's like £25, maybe $45, really worth it if you're into crop circles, because every other day of the summer, I'd get 1, 2, 3 new crop circles and images and comments from people that went in the formations. But they really have slowed down. Now, why Wiltshire? Why, what we discovered was the high 90% of the crop circles that we located were sitting over an aquifer of water. That's one element. The second element that was consistent was almost every crop circle sitting on a ley line, which is a direct line between two sacred sites. You've got enhanced frequency, you've got water frequency. And so when the earth herself is sending up these messages through water, through earth, through grasses and everything, she uses all these elements together with the intention of giving us that image or that mathematical picture so that everybody can say, oh, wow, Fibonacci sequence, really impressive. You know, like, wow, and there's not one out of place, like the size is perfect. How does that happen? Those layers of boundary conditions, distinct boundary conditions of the different frequencies, often can include human consciousness. In my earlier movie, I did a story about Sirius crop circle researchers, Janet Osebart and Bert Janssen, that had sat around in a pub in England with some friends, and they said, let's create a crop circle with intention. So they sat there and they focused on this picture of a tile that had 5 Celtic crosses at an angle in a circle, in a square. And they just looked at this square tile with this pattern. A couple of days later, it showed up identical. And I tell that story in this movie, Crop Circle Update, the Wake Up Call. So people are also creating crop circles with intention. And Penny explains that energy in motion is what we call emotion. So as we focus our intention on putting a message out, we're going to be able to send that out very gracefully if we really stick with our intention. And I think that's what the crop circles have been about, is the earth intending to communicate with us. Let's look at the alien face and the disc, which was the crop circle at the top of this century. I sent you that image.
I'll put that up right now.
So this crop circle, it looks like an alien gray, you know, to everybody, but what's the big disc next to it that looks like a player piano with all the messaging, the little binary code? And it was so phenomenal, this crop circle. And everybody was freaked out because all they saw was the alien, but they didn't really see the binary code message, which said, beware the bearers of false gifts and their broken promises. Much pain, but still time. Believe there is good out there. We oppose deception. Conduit closing. Now, this was right after 9/11. And it was located in a field with 2 huge telecommunication towers, TV and radio. Now, the circle makers didn't just drop it in Chilbolton, the earth. She didn't just put it there. She put it there in front of 2 towers that could possibly get the information out to the world. Clever, mother. Clever, earth, right? Communication. And it was in Chilbolton, this little area in England. Well, a year later, there was another crop circle, all binary code. And it was in Chilbolton, in a completely different field that had a huge communication tower. In the Arecibo message, what it was this response to a message that we sent out, America, Costa Rica, actually from the Arecibo communication tower, 1,000 square foot, huge disc that sent this message up to space. And we sent it to a star cluster called M13. And we were very specific with the data that was in this message that we sent. And then years later, here comes this crop circle, almost identical. It was clear that it was the same message, but it had distinct changes, such as they added the element silicon at the turn of the century. Well, hello, computers. They said that the head was a lot bigger than we showed them our heads were. And then we showed them our star systems. We showed them all these different things. And at the very end, our telecommunication tower, and they sent back an image of theirs. So basically, it was this mirror image with differences, which to me sounds like pretty clear communication, where the earth herself or the star beings said, here you go, we're listening, we hear you, we see you. And then the third image I brought is 2009. What was the message? Okay, now I want to remind us that in 2001 and 2, those 2 binary code messages, beware the bearers of false gifts and their broken promises, that was 9/11. 9/11 was the big message. Now in 2009, we
Oh,
didn't
that
have.
wait. Now those two telecommunication towers were maybe representative of the two twin towers. Also, there's an easy overlap right there of two towers.
Ooh. Ow! That gave me goosebumps to my toes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good one, David.
I'll just add that there's no accidents and no coincidences in everything that other beings do. They're very intentional. So go ahead, Patty.
And the Earth. I mean,
Yeah.
she's real clear, real
Oh, yeah.
clear. So 2009, we get birds, insects, fish, but they weren't just. They were like ancient creatures, like the Orthoceras, like a 1,500-foot long octopus in a field of gorgeous green wheat, and it's undulating and it's moving, but you can still see this octopus with these long tentacles, and swirl of fish, and then we had the birds. We had the rising phoenix with flames around her base crop circle. Come on, try making that, boys with boards and ropes, and girls, and everything in between. So birds, fish, insects. Now we've got the ancient scarab, and then we've got the dragonfly, and then we've got the bee, all these endangered, beautiful creatures. But it wasn't that endangered when we were seeing them in 2009 through the summer. What happened in the spring of 2010? BP oil spill. Birds, fish, bugs all over, just destroyed the ecology. And in my opinion, the mother was saying, warning, warning, birds, fish, insects, going to the ancient ones. I mean, like I said, really old, the Orthoceras, the rising phoenix, and the ancient birdfish bug was the scarab. So yeah, we were being shown what was coming. And then the last couple that I have are the photos would be the virus crop circle, which came to us in 2020, May 28th, my anniversary, of 2020, right when the flu thing was spreading. And what did the Earth do? She gave us this image of a crop circle of a virus that had spike proteins. Like, the picture was insane. It was so clear. And then the summer before, there was this Wesak festival of all the hippies in England and music and art, and this huge crop circle showed up, which was Extinction Rebellion. Well, we're kind of in it now. So here I am, like, looking at crop circles over the years, thinking, wow, the mother's been laying it out, giving us the information all along. It's just up to us to listen and care.
Can I tell you an Extinction Rebellion story?
Yeah.
So I was over in England, and I was with Piers Corbin and myself. We were at an event with Sandy Adams and Mark Meadows, and we were all speaking at this event. But we were in Glastonbury on Halloween Eve. And when we started our event, Piers was he was the first speaker, obviously. Astrophysicist, if nobody's familiar with his credentials, you definitely want to check him out. But Extinction Rebellion came blasting in there with a bunch of people and tried to shut down the event. So me and a bunch of the other guys there pushed him back out the door and had this ongoing, incredible argument in the hallway, which I did a video on. And then it got so loud that the people actually that were trying to listen to Piers all come out and go, yo, you all need to settle down or leave because we are trying to listen to this presentation. And one thing that was strange is they knew I was a speaker there and they're trying to shut down. There's only 4 of us, but they would never look me in the eye and have a debate with me in the hallway. They were always talking to everybody else or screaming at everybody else. And I'm like, hey, I'm the one you want to talk to. I'm the one who's speaking. And they never even gave me like one smidgen of even acknowledgement that as a human being was there. It was like total, just this veil of, you're not even here. You know, it was just the craziest thing and again, that was in England on Halloween in Glastonbury. I remember I was staying at Sandy's house and this dude walks down the street, the most incredible, like, warlock type garb, you know, the hat, the gown, everything. And I go, wow, that is crazy. And she goes, no, he lives here. He's like, he dressed like that every day. And I was like, well, what kind of town is Glastonbury? You know?
Forgot about the sword. Didn't he have a sword on with a lock?
No,
all
we were driving by and I just quickly glanced at him on the sidewalk because he was walking by, and I was like, that's crazy, like picking that up. But, one thing, Nikola Tesla, when you were mentioning these crop circles, like where they might be located on ley lines or over water, Nikola Tesla at Wardenclyffe Tower also had the same exact matchup over an aquifer on a supposed ley line, or actually there was an intersection of several ley lines, and that's Wardenclyffe Tower that Nikola Tesla was doing wireless technology and energy distribution with. And then also well-known pyramids right over the same thing. It's on aquifers, it's on the ley lines. So it seems like there is something to really validate that this is a very special set of circumstances when you have the ley lines and you have the aquifers, that something is bound to take place there, because it seems maybe that resonance field can hold state or charge up because of those two things interplaying with each other.
That's, I have to comment there. When you have a plasma ball or you have any kind of a current, let's start with a current. Okay, so you've got this current, and so there's even though there's argument about whether electrons really move anywhere, they jostle one another and bump, and so that is what amounts to a current. And anywhere you have a current, you have an electromagnetic field that is orthogonal to that, or at right angles to that. That field then separates into these filaments, and those filaments collect particles, and the particles that are near one another begin to communicate electrically. In terms of spin, they gravitate to one another. They also communicate, they develop their own form of intelligence, and from those patterns, plasma forms, and from the plasma, matter forms. And so you have this progression of creation from energy to matter. And when you have a plasma ball, which the Earth is the same thing, and this goes back to your question actually about why England, what's happening in England that so many crop circles happen there. And it might be just the documentation, because there's crop circles all over the US. But what happens is that when there's a gathering of people around a plasma ball and somebody touches it, immediately a filament forms right there. And it's the interaction of the plasma and whatever the human is, or could be an animal, or could be a machine, could be anything. But the filament forms, and then that filament, it begins interacting. And so what I see has happened in terms of the planet is that the plasma filaments are going in a different direction. So either the balance of population has changed. The water thing is a big important thing. The ley lines are a big important thing. That's the grid. But then there's these dynamic filaments that form and reform and move around. And you can see that when you see somebody touching a plasma ball, the filaments jump to wherever the fingertip is. That same sort of dynamic I see happening on the planet. And so as the people gather in different locations or leave different locations, and they take their consciousness with them, that shifts the balance. And then we get a shift in the action going on in that corner of the world. So that is, I think, a partial explanation for why was England such a major place. And then the consciousness was kind of smushed. All the farmers told, you got to mow it down. Farmers getting upset. There's people chopping through my field. They're destroying my crop. We didn't really understand as a general group what we were looking at. And so it's a phenomenon. Oh, wow, look at all that. But over time, you get big changes in where the energy, where the filaments form coming out of the plasma ball of Earth. And I think that that's why some of the energies are showing up in different places. So.
What kind of consciousness would they be projecting then to pull that? Perhaps pull is even the wrong word to use, but to get that energy to move to their location, what types of thoughts would they be putting into the field out there to have that then gravitate their direction?
You have to be willing to interact. That's the biggest criteria. If you're willing to interact, that means you're open. That means your consciousness is looking, it's listening, it's watching, it's feeling, it's looking for any kind of taste or smell changes. All of those things indicate an interest in or willingness to communicate. And that is what draws some of that power in plasma. If you're closed, if you're fearful, if you don't want to know, if it's too overwhelming, then the communication doesn't happen and everything shuts down. And that's just the way that, I mean, you have to be willing to let the energies flow through you. And when you do that, you become a channel for new kinds of information, new kinds of organization, etc. And I personally think, I see it every day, the planet is going through a total reorganization of its consciousness, and that is affecting the people. The planet's actually moving through some really big plasma sheets right now, and those have a huge effect on us and what goes on between us and our sun and the various planets, etc. And so when you have a change in the planetary dynamics, and then you have a change in the dynamics of all the people on that surface or in that planet, because we have people above, on, and in our planet, that has a big impact on where the interactions are going to show up and what the messages are going to be. Everything is going to reflect what those messages are, and consciousness is reflected in those crop circles. And I look at many of those and think, you could interpret this to be a real warning, or you could interpret this to say, oh, look at where we are going. This is wonderful. Be aware, and so on and so forth. So we have some things to become aware of, and the nature of reality has to be understood differently for us to really gel as a new earth kind of thing, or a new world, move into a new world, or not a new world order, but a new world with a whole new kind of consciousness. And I'm hoping that we'll get there. Fingers crossed.
So you're seeing changes in the galactic current sheet right now that others are speaking of, that we're heading into denser regions of space, plasma density wise, which will heat as well, and then also electrically, and describing the same thing.
Look at the changes in the in the frequency, the Schumann resonance of the Earth. It was 7.8, I think, for years, and now it's regularly bouncing around up at 15, 20, 30. Like, whoa, something's happening there. That's not accidental. So that
I was watching a report. I was watching a report yesterday on so new models coming out talking about the Schumann resonance. There's a lot of consistent action right now below the 7 hertz. It's down in the sub 7 hertz. It seems to be a huge conglomeration of consistent pulsations coming out of that sub 7 hertz now.
Yep. Yeah. And that's probably good, because a lot of people have heart attacks and their blood pressure goes through the roof when it goes up too much above 12 or 15. The people have strokes. Even we are not very healthy, and we're not very flexible. And we tend, whenever we feel something different, we tend to shut down. We tighten up instead of loosen. And we need to learn to loosen up.
So we're in a 5th dimensional war. We know this. There's nothing more important than consciousness and endurance and faith. In my opinion, those are the 3 that I think rule right now. And for me, good sleep, which I'm kind of missing, and C60 Evo, it keeps my brain okay. Now, my body is my body, and I'm this age, but my brain is freaking on fire. And I feel like that is so important, because otherwise we're going to lose our marbles. I watch way too much news, but I don't watch silly news or perception news. I watch congressional hearings. one after another because they're just banging the truth out right now. But then we're still living in this world of complete ignorance and foolishness and letting the CCP do these things that they shouldn't have access to do. Everything they've done, I'm not even going to start there, but consciousness, good God, consciousness, raise it and keep it raised every day, whatever it takes. Find your tools, share them with your friends, and really try and talk about positive things, even though things are extremely challenging, because our thoughts create our reality, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So I want mine to be a good one.
You just threw a thought at me. You just mentioned tools. So Penny, this might be, if you had neodymium magnets and then you had either a frequency generator or you just pulled something like a 720 hertz or a 528 hertz, video off YouTube with binaural beats in there, could you do something with a neodymium magnet and then frequencies to change those seeds? Because Patty, you hit me when you said tools. I'm thinking tools. Oh, magnets and frequency. I'm just curious because for some reason when you said tools, that flew into my head and I saw those two objects right come like whoosh, right like that together.
Yeah. If you can get a hold of an aluminum plate, and it really needs to be a 1/4 inch thick. I mean, this is not a piece of aluminum foil. Okay. It's an aluminum plate. And it doesn't have to be big. You put some seeds on there and you either attach electricity to that or you put another plate above it and run electricity through that plate so that there's an ion electron avalanche, or you wave a magnet over that 2 centimeters above the seed. You'll be able to impact those seeds. Absolutely. So consciousness will also do that. However, plants are very attuned to whatever individual is handling them, and that they will adjust their frequency to produce fruit. Everything is a fruit to a farmer, whether it's grain or veggies or whatever. But they produce the fruit of that plant is going to be geared toward healing the person that handled them, the person that took care of them. And that's a critical piece of knowledge. If you're eating food that came from South America, that food has been grown in soil that does not have the paciferins and some of the other factors in it that will heal us in North America. And it doesn't have the what the plant puts in. The plant's job is to serve the human. And so when the human's walking back and forth among the plants, if there's a human walking back and forth among the plants, the plant is tuning in to that frequency, that field, and saying, oh, he's missing this and she needs that, and etc. And so they then change their chemistry to heal that person. Somebody comes along, picks that fruit, sends it 1,500 miles away. What good does the plant's intelligence do? It's lost. And so I think we have to, one of the tools that we have to take on is the task of growing some, at least some of our own food. Doesn't have to be all of it. And being able to interact with those plants and being able to experiment with things like magnets, electricity, and just human healing energies. All of those are very, very powerful.
Excellent. See, it gives everybody a chance to try something to improve your yields in your garden. On my channel, Adapt 2030, I am all about trying to get people more ready for these changes. And one of them is going to be growing our own food again, much like we did with our grandparents. You're going to have a home garden to move through some of these changes as supply chains start to break down in certain fashions that you might not get your lettuce in the middle of January, but you might be able to grow some kale or have some kohlrabi or something else growing in a cool weather season, some mustard greens, the edible kind, of course. There's all these fixes and changes. Obviously, if you're in Michigan, you're not going to be able to grow. Well, but the further south you get, you can definitely put in winter gardens and they will grow slowly, but you'll still get some yields out of them. So how can you increase your yields of any way, shape, or form, whether it's summertime, springtime, wintertime, and experimenting with ideas like this is at least a great start, so we all can do it and then compare information on what worked or what didn't.
That's right. Grow some food. If it's too much, Mother Nature is very generous. So if you grow too much
overly
with somebody, give it away.
Yeah. And for all of you out there listening, thanks for your time. I'm going to put all the links in the description box below so you can check out Patty's films, which I've also watched. And Penny, I'll link to your site there too, because I know you have a huge amount of information, and then people can go down the rabbit holes, because it's going to be your own individual motivation on how much more research you want to do. But I'm really into the Tesla technologies and the plasma frequencies and the change of the planets electromagnetically affecting our Earth, and this potentiality of our sun stepping down in its frequency, and that magnetics moving out into the outer gas giants, which might become more luminous around 2024, is the potentiality of electromagnetism moves from body to body. It never goes to zero, it moves. So these are the things I'm into, and any research I can get to help me fill in a piece that's not already there, again, I'm all open to that. So I'm so grateful and thankful for both of your minds. And I have, as we were talking, check out this page of notes I've put together.
Scribble,
yeah,
scribble.
right. I take notes.
That's
So anyway,
awesome.
these are things that had come across my own, mind when you were having a conversation. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Any closing words?
I would say a couple things. Number one, we're in the bottom of the crucible right now, and we're being pretty much pounded on. I think that I see a huge change coming over the next 3 months, 4 months, and then another huge, even bigger change happening in 2026. And that's a very good change. So hang in there. Patty said it. What'd you say? Consciousness, endurance, and faith. I like that. Endurance. When we entered into this whole period, for me, it started 43 years ago after the little men in brown robes. But you have to have endurance. You will have to be able to hold your own and not get all freaked out. So, and believe in yourself.
Absolutely. We were talking about that before the show, how some people write and they say, oh, I honor you, Penny, you own all your books. And the nice thing is we just need to hold up a mirror and say, you are just as important. Everybody is just as important. We just are kind of balls to the walls this year, still telling the truth in times of universal deceit, but people can easily find my films at cropcirclefilms.com. And the one with me and Penny is by far, I think, the most important crop circle movie ever made, because it tells the science, and it's not woo-woo maybe. This is like the real science in a lab for years discovered. They're coming out of the earth. A lot of people are going to have a hard time with that. What do you mean the earth is conscious? Well, does she grow hair and trees? I mean, not hair. We grow hair. She grows trees. The water keeps moving. I think she's been incredibly patient with us, and she's still sending us these messages, not as many, but the messages are super important.
I'll put the cherry on top with the paper mache aliens out of Mexico. Drop right there on your parfait sundae.
All right. Well, or you could just feature,
There you go. Evie
butt.
There you go.
I prefer movie camera angle.
Oh.
Thanks for watching. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
But 2008 is when the system actually died and was put on QE life support till they could get into place the next system that will take the current system's place. And what I'm talking about is, like, back in 71, we went from a quasi-gold standard in August, in the beginning of August of 1971, to a pure debt-based standard by the end of August and going into September. People didn't realize that anything had changed, when in reality everything had changed. And we're at that same juncture right now where everything has changed.
Absolutely. And to that point, Zoltan Posner of Credit Suisse actually has a paper out saying that the crisis that we saw in 1971, it's not even going to be anywhere, near that. It's going to be way worse what we're experiencing today. Mm-hmm. But my question is, I was just observing, when I was outside the head office of UBS and I was looking at passerbys and I was wondering, do you think that most people are even aware of what's happening and the repercussions?
No.
With rising inflation, bank failures, and massive layoffs across multiple sectors, the future of the economy remains uncertain. It's no wonder the central banks have been getting prepared by stockpiling gold. At ITM Trading, we have spent over 27 years building a team of seasoned researchers and analysts who can help you prepare for any financial crisis. Our experts are ready to provide you with proven strategies to safeguard your wealth and assets in the event of an economic downturn or currency reset, which is frankly inevitable. Don't wait until it's too late.
ITM Trading is a precious metals company that's been in business for over 27 years with the mission to educate and empower individuals to hedge against inflation, financial risk, and help you prepare for the Great Reset. Schedule your free gold and silver strategy call, 866-834-1422. That's 866-834-1422.